Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to my Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Thank you.
Welcome to the party, pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 169, and I'm welcoming back Esteban Hernandez. We're going to talk about Javier Milei. Esteban's from Venezuela, so I'm finally going to take some time to talk about Venezuela, maybe later in the show too. But Milei is the main topic here, and we want to first of all have a short response to an article that recently appeared in Reason magazine by Antonella Marty, who has now protected her tweets. But anyway, how are you, Esteban?
Good, Chris. Thank you for having me again. Yeah. How are you?
Yeah, and you're in Florida now, right? You've left Venezuela for good, probably. So
yes, I live in South Florida. Yes.
Well. Let's hope Venezuela, becomes a place you might want to go back to. But as far as things are concerned right now, that may not happen. So anyway, the second time you've been on here, and we talked about Milei before. You saw the article by Antonella Marty. What do you make of that article? It's
I did see the article. I think it's actually a bunch of lies, and her ideas don't have any argument to whatever her point is, and I'm going to explain why. Basically, Antonella Marty wrote an article for Reason magazine in which she's accusing Javier Milei of being a threat to freedom and liberty.
Yes.
One of the main arguments that she uses for this is that Javier Milei, who has been in power only for 4 months, let's remember that,
yes,
is still like, let's say, proceeding, with this war against drugs, which is something that obviously here in the US we criticize a lot. And as a libertarian, you say, that is not right. However, we need to understand the context, right, of the whole situation. And in the case of Argentina, the main issue right now, just like I can tell you in the case of Venezuela or in the case of El Salvador, or like before Bukele got to power, they have like different issues or main issues that need to be attended. In the case of Argentina, the main issue is the economy. Every time that you talk about Argentina, you always talk about the hyperinflation that they were going to. You talk about the rate of poverty, which is like 50% of the people in Argentina, or about 50% of the people are considered to be poor. So basically anything related to the economy is the main issue for Argentinians. And that is the main issue that we know, even for the ones that are not from that country. So when you get to power in a country like Argentina, the main issue or the main area in which you have to work on, it has to be the economy, because it is the main reason why people voted for you. And it is the main reason or the main thing that if you fix, then you can start going, or you can start fixing other issues that your country may be facing. Just like in the case of El Salvador, for example, the main issue was safety. That people were able to, or people were not able to go to the streets after a certain time. They were not able to go to the streets in certain places because they were controlled by the gangs, right? So in Argentina, the main issue is the economy. In Venezuela, it would be the economy as well. It would be safety as well. It would be the institutions, because Venezuela has been down this path for over 25 years. So in the article, she basically says that because of this war against drugs, Javier Milei is a threat to liberty and to freedom. And he's not an ally of freedom. He's not a true libertarian, you might say. Now, here's the issue, and this actually shows you how personal the thing is with Antonella against Milei, and it's not an actual argument. Her issue is not about the policies, and I'm going to explain to you why. Antonella Marty worked, and she was part of a political party in Argentina called Cambiemos. This political party was the one led by Mauricio Macri. Who was Mauricio Macri? Mauricio Macri was a president in Argentina. Before Milei, there was a guy named Alberto Fernandez, and before Alberto Fernandez, there was this guy named Mauricio Macri.
Macri was the president, and was Esperta part of that party too, or not?
She was. That's what I'm saying. Antonella
Jose Luis Espert, was he part of that party as well?
No, Jose Luis Esper, and that's another issue that we're going that we need to discuss a little bit later, because that actually shows you also that Antonella, when it comes to avoiding or keeping certain people from getting to power, she actually becomes a little pragmatic, and she's able to support people that are not true libertarians. But that doesn't count when it comes to Javier Milei for some reason that I don't understand, who is like the most libertarian president ever, right? Well, here's the issue. She actually worked or she was part of the campaign of Mauricio Macri in the first campaign where he won. And guess what? In the article that she mentions in Reason, she's criticizing Milei because he appointed Patricia Bullrich as the Secretary of Security, right? And she's the one taking these policies for the war on drugs, basically. So she's criticizing Patricia Bullrich and Milei for appointing her. But she didn't criticize Mauricio Macri when he did exactly the same when she was working with the campaign, because Patricia Bullrich was also Mauricio Macri's Secretary of Security. That's it. And she was implementing the same policy that she's implementing right now. So why didn't she say something against Mauricio Macri at the moment? First question. Second question. When it comes to the re-election, where it was again Mauricio Macri, this time against Alberto Fernandez, when he lost the election, right? There was an option, a libertarian option, with no true chance of winning, who was the guy that you just mentioned, Jose Luis Espert. Well, I was on a WhatsApp group with Antonella Marty and other people, somebody from Colombia, so there were other people from Venezuela, and Antonella was in the chat. And after the primaries, even though Jose Luis Espert was going to be in the general election, she sent on the group, okay, I understand that, you know, we share more ideas with Jose Luis Espert, but he has no real chance at winning, so we have to support Mauricio Macri. That was for his re-election. And I said, I agree with you. I totally understand. In Latin America, we usually have to stay with the lesser of two evils, because we have a bunch of criminals and we have some that are not the best presidents or the best politicians, but at least you know that you can get rid of them in the next elections. So she supported somebody who was not a libertarian, who appointed Patricia Bullrich in the same position as Javier Milei, not only for his first election, but also for his failed attempt to win re-election. So where is the double standard here? You know, if she would have criticized Mauricio Macri for that, I would have told you, okay, she has a point. Now, there is another question that I have to do, because I agree, the war on drugs is a non-libertarian position.
Yes.
However, this is something that we need to ask, not ourselves, to Argentinians. Are you guys freer than, like right now, than before Javier Milei got to power, or are you more oppressed? The same question that I would ask, for example, people from El Salvador. Are you guys freer right now, or are you more oppressed? And the question is simple. I mean, the answer is simple. They are freer. They are. Because when you have somebody, like this guy, in only 4 months, he was able to stop hyperinflation. That is not something little. That is not something small. Argentina is having a surplus since, I don't know, 15 years or something like that.
They've had 2 monthly budget surpluses. Yes.
Exactly. And again, only in 4 months. So people are going to be able to actually keep right now their savings. Do you think that people with money are freer or are more oppressed than people without money? That is a simple question. So that is not an argument. But the problem with Antonella, it has to be something personal. I don't know what happened between them, but it isn't the first time that she focuses on the issues that are not real. I'm from Venezuela. You said that yourself. There is this book. I don't know if you've ever seen it, right? I was getting it before the interview, so I could show you this example. And they have like a bunch of people who help, actually write on this book. And this book was actually, or is focused on Venezuela. They have like proposals for what to do when it comes to, to fixing the health system, to fixing everything. Everything you're going to find it there. They asked Antonella to write the introduction of the book, right? And then she said that she was being censored by this group of conservatives that, that dare to write this book, because she wanted to write about gay marriage in a country that is the least important thing if you know the reality of Venezuela. People are starving to death in Venezuela. So are you serious going to write about an issue that people don't even care about because they have no food in their stomachs? Poverty in Venezuela is over 90%. Over 90%. And you really think that that is the best topic to touch, or to cover? That is just to give you another example of what her issue is, which is not understanding the reality and the context of the countries. In Argentina, they have an economic issue, and Javier Milei is focusing on that, and he's doing an amazing job at it.
Yeah, he's going to cut a few more, 50,000 or 70,000 more jobs.
70,000, yes.
Yeah, it's really interesting to watch what's going on here. I don't see how, and he provides a blueprint for how libertarians elsewhere can win. It's really key here. I think it's really the most important thing. I see what we can do, and what else we can do. It's how we can get from where we are now to where we are later. I certainly hope that's yeah.
But that is another thing, Chris. Javier Milei is becoming this really, really influential person, not only in Argentina. And I mean, you see it here in the US, that he's becoming this role model for libertarians. But in Latin America, he's having way more impact.
Yes.
I mean, for obvious reasons. In Latin America, most of the countries speak Spanish. So we don't need to wait for somebody to translate. We don't need to wait for somebody to show us what he's trying to say or what he means by whatever it is that he's saying. So that also has a lot of value. Antonella, before this, because right now I don't think she's being that influential, but before this, she was influential, just like Gloria Alvarez. And they kind of put these ideas, in discussion in a region that is not used to this idea. So that is something that we need to be thankful for. But then because there is somebody who's being more successful than you at doing that, you're going to attack him? Are you serious? No.
I think there's some people long been believed that as long as I've been a libertarian, there are some people who would almost be more content with it just being a minority movement that everybody thinks is weird.
Yes.
I remember reading a letter. I think it might have been in TV Guide or something. Somebody wrote this letter and said, he was a big fan of Star Trek, and he said it was a lot more fun when everybody thought we were crazy. And when Star Trek, when it became mainstream, it wasn't fun anymore. And I don't know. I know in America, I have long sensed that there's some people, at least in the Libertarian Party, who seem rather content or resigned to the party just staying at 1%. And, I don't want to comment on where the party is right now because I don't know.
But yes, but what you're saying is true. Austin Peterson, he posted on X a few days ago, something like that. I don't get why people in the US are attacking Javier Milei so much when he's doing an amazing job. Yeah. And I told him, because you guys, and I say you guys without including me, because you guys are used to losing. So now that is your mindset. When you see somebody winning from your own side, that you're going to say, oh, he's not a true libertarian. Because how in the world, is a libertarian actually winning? How in the world is a libertarian actually doing real politics? How was he attractive with unpopular ideas to the majority of voters, especially in a country of Argentina? If you understand, like, all the let's say the path that Argentina has been through, like, it is amazing that it's Argentina the first country with an open libertarian president, because I mean, yes, they have Javier Milei now, but they were also the creators of Peronismo, So I mean, it's like two opposite ideas, and this country was the one that gave birth to both of them. That is just crazy. And if you don't like Javier Milei, again, you can criticize him. I'm not a fan of any politician. Even I have criticized him, and I'm going to do that every time that I think he's doing something that is wrong. But if you're going to criticize him, like, do it from honesty, do it to actually reach the truth, and not just because of something personal that doesn't make sense at all.
It often becomes personal. I think, unfortunately, too, Esteban, there might be this action. Did we win? Did we really win? Are you sure that we won? How did we win? Did they make a mistake? And then there might be this assumption, well, if he won, he must have made a deal with the devil to win.
Exactly.
You know,
I mean, right now we have here in the U.S. I don't know if you like the guy or not, but we have Justin Amash running for Senate, right, in Michigan.
yes. Oh, yeah, Mesh is a good guy, yeah.
Okay, exactly. I mean, if he wins, are we gonna say, "Oh, that means that he negotiated with the devil"? He has a record, and that record is, if not the best one, one of the best in Washington. So if he wins the Senate, before attacking him or questioning him for winning, I'm actually gonna say, okay, this guy knows how to do politics. If he won, it's not because he betrayed us, but actually because he's good, and maybe we need to learn from him. You know?
Yeah. Well, we've had wins like Amash before, so that would be completely outlandish. I mean, they haven't come very often, but we have had those. And we certainly hope Amash does well. He's running for the Senate, and maybe that'll work out. But yeah, I think there is and that was the first thing I said. Just study this as much as you possibly can I could study it as much as I possibly can to see what we can learn, because I'm clearly seeing that Milei has done things differently from other libertarians. I think having a lion as your mascot instead of a porcupine helps. I think, and the most important thing is he figured out a way to make himself cool.
Yes, instead of weird, even though he was actually a little bit weird, because I mean, he even got a costume of Captain Anarchy. I don't know if you saw that.
And I had Jack Lloyd on because Jack Lloyd's comic book actually influenced that. And the other thing too is, once you're considered cool, you can get away with a lot more things that you can't get away with if you're not you're not in the popular kids.
That is true. That is true. But again, you need to. There is a really thin line between being cool or being cringe, right? And I don't think that libertarians in the U.S. have actually been able to understand how to go to the right side instead of to the cringe side. This is something that I told you last time. Like, every time that I see a tweet from the Libertarian Party of, for example, New Hampshire, yes, they're polemical and they get coverage, but it's not the right one. And it's coming from a guy that I only worked in a political campaign for a friend who is Martha Bueno, right?
Yes,
and I got the craziest idea, which was the OnlyFans. But again, the way that I did it, because if it's somebody else, if it would have been like a regular libertarian, it would have probably been like, okay, you open an OnlyFans to actually post sexual content, just to get the coverage. I was like, no, you can't do that. And I told Martha, yes, OnlyFans, we need it. That is going to get you the coverage. But the twist is going to be that it's going to be political content, a little bit spicy. But I even told her, look, I don't want you even to show your ankles. I want you to be full clothes, like you're professional, because this is already something polemical, right? That people are going to question. But if they see that it actually has this humor and this, spicy but political content, then they're actually going to like you. And that is exactly what happens. If it would have been sexual, it's again, another libertarian, this time selling her body, for a political position. How serious can that be? So we need to be creative, but at the same time, we need to be serious. Even when she was going to TV stations, I would tell her, I mean, that dress is too short. You need to wear a longer one. I need you to look more conservative because your campaign is already too crazy for some people. So they need to be how serious you can look and how serious you can get. And that is the main issue. I don't think libertarians in general, but especially the ones in the US, have been able to adapt that type of things. Javier Milei, he was yelling at everybody, but at the time that he was yelling, he was actually throwing facts. It's not that, I hate you because you're ugly. I mean, he could say that, but at the same time, he tell you you're ugly and you are responsible for the inflation that we have because you printed this much money. I mean, he would tell you that type of things. So that is the value that he has, and that is something that we need to learn here and in other parts of the world.
Yeah, but just to let everybody know, Martha's OnlyFans video is, I would call it PG. She keeps her clothes on, but it's very funny. It's very well done.
I wrote the script for that too.
It does have some innuendo in it, so it's, like I said, it's PG. But you could let your kids watch it. But yeah, it's
exactly.
But for a political candidate, I think it's definitely a spin on politics. And you've got to do things that are unusual. But sometimes, those are always the riskiest things to do, because if you alienate the wrong people. But yeah, I think, and I do think the standards can be different for a female than a male.
That is another thing. No, you're totally right on that, Chris. You need to understand the person that is running for office. So, for example, let's say that tomorrow Justin Amash calls me to work for his campaign. I would never tell him to open an OnlyFans. That makes no sense. But I will try to find, like, for example, and I can give you another example, not of somebody who's a libertarian, but who's a conservative. If I would have been in Ron DeSantis' campaign, one of the things that I would have told him, like during the campaign for the primaries, would have been travel to the border, right? And make fun of Trump, saying, look, this is the wall that he built. And there's like an empty thing behind.
Yeah.
Like something like that is actually gonna get the attention of the mainstream media, which even though they are in decline, they are still the ones that make the news and that make us talk about issues. Whether, maybe they have less audience and whatever, but every time that somebody like you or me who are like freelancers, right? Private streamers, if we want to use another term, we actually comment on what the mainstream media is saying. So they still have the power. It is difficult to take it from them. So if you want the mainstream media to cover, like your campaign in this case, you need to find those creative ways that are funny, that people can actually laugh at, that people can feel connected with, but at the same time, that doesn't take away the seriousness of the issue. So Javier Milei was able to do that. I mean, Bukele, we have Bukele in El Salvador. I think Latin America is becoming really interesting because of these two people. And maybe we're going to have just maybe we're going to have something similar in Chile soon. Like we don't know. Maybe Johannes Kaiser, who's a sitting congressman right now, like he's running for president. Maybe he wins. Who knows? But that is the issue. We have somebody like Nayib Bukele who's more serious, in appearance, in the way that he speaks. But then he will go to the United Nations, I'm here at the United Nations, like with his cell phone, taking a video, and those things went viral. I mean, that is I think these people, and this is why they're so influential, not only in the countries, but also outside, is because they found the gaps that the right or that libertarians usually have when it comes to communications.
Yeah. I don't believe Axel Kaiser does want to run for president of Chile, at least based
on... No,
Axel,
no. His brother, Johannes Kaiser.
Oh, okay.
He's running.
Okay.
Yes.
He's got a brother. Okay.
Yeah. He's got a brother and a sister. I always talk to his sister, Vanessa Kaiser. I interviewed her precisely after he decided to run. Johannes Kaiser is right now a sitting congressman in Chile, and he's running for president.
And he's also a libertarian. That's cool. Yeah,
he's not as libertarian as Milei. He's, I would say, libertarianish. Conservatarian, maybe, would be the right term.
Yes.
But he's closer to us, yes.
Does he speak English?
I don't know if he speaks English. He speaks German. So probably he speaks English, yeah.
Okay, yeah. No, that. Yeah, so yeah, Chile is an interesting situation. I hope everything. This could be a real. As somebody said to me too, as Argentina goes, the rest of South America goes.
It's not always true, because, for example, Latin America became red or became communist, or at least a radical left, even if they weren't able to implement communism in all of the countries. It was thanks to Venezuela. It wasn't thanks to Argentina. It was thanks to Venezuela under Hugo Chavez. So it doesn't always work like that. I think right now, yes, Argentina is the one that is leading, like, the opposite side of the Sao Paulo Forum, which is this international organization that got Chavez and Petro and all of these leftist leaders to power. But yeah, it isn't usually Argentina. I think every country plays a role at a certain moment. Venezuela was the one who actually was the leader of the leftist movement in Latin America.
Yes, the Sao Paulo Forum is a very evil cabal. I hope maybe Milei can get together with some other people and form, an antidote to that.
Well, they have already the Madrid Forum. Okay, they did it in Madrid, obviously, in Spain. But I don't think they have been as effective, because I think they are still staying too much in the theoretical part. I don't think they have been able to actually apply, this international alliance that they need to promote. I think they understand that they need it, but I don't think they've been efficient at promoting it. I've always said this. Javier Milei, if he's reelected, he's going to become the Hugo Chavez, right, of the opposite side of the aisle. But he needs to be reelected, because right now he's focusing, even though he still has great influence in the whole region and the world in general. Right now, he needs to focus in the domestic policy, because there's a lot of issues to fix in Argentina. But after his re-election, which would be like 4 years from now, if he's re-elected, I think he's going to focus in the international level, because he understands that if that doesn't get fixed, eventually that is going to go back to Argentina. Actually, not too long ago, I believe it was before the pandemic, in 2019, 2018, the second in charge in Venezuela, not the vice president, because I mean, in a political model like the one in Venezuela, those positions are actually just, something for you to say that, oh, I'm the vice president. But you have Nicolás Maduro, who's the main person of the regime of Venezuela, and then the second person is the president of the party, who is Diosdado Cabello. Well, in 2018 or 2019, he actually said publicly there are going to be Bolivarian winds, brisas bolivarianas, all over the region. And then a few months after it, we started seeing, this political, these protests like the ones of Black Lives Matter here, the ones that are violent, that try to to affect the country in a negative way. We saw that in Colombia. We saw that in Chile. We saw that in Ecuador, like in so many countries that it's like, I mean, that these people are actually working together and they finance these groups, because you don't need to finance all of the people that are protesting. You need something that ignites, like this spark, so people go to the streets. And then let's say that you have 10,000 people on the streets. If you have 10 people that are able to transform that movement into something violent, that's it. And that is what they did in those countries. And then we have been getting reports precisely that in those protests there was money coming from Venezuela. So yeah, if Milei understands that, which I think he does, he's gonna focus eventually at the international level, but that would be after fixing, the internal problems that he has.
The other thing that I think is significant about Milei is, back in the 60s and 70s, there was the attitude among the libertarians at the time was, well, we've got to go in and try to infiltrate and make the colleges free market. I think now there's the realization that project completely failed and that we can't fix the colleges. We've got to go out and communicate to the general public, which is what Milei did. And that seems to be maybe where Milei's focus changed from hanging out with other academics to going out and talking to the public.
But I think, let me agree, but also disagree, because I think the issue is only focusing on one area. I don't think that you can abandon the academia like fully. If you do that, you're also going to keep losing. And as a matter of fact, the young people who are the ones that are being like indoctrinated, like in the universities, they are one of the main group of voters of Javier Milei.
Yeah.
So that isn't a lost cause. But you need to get the perfect balance of having people in the academia, having people in the media, having people in politics, having people in other groups like religion, for example, like preachers or priests or whatever, because those are influential at their own level. So if you are able to influence, 1,000 priests, those 1,000 priests they're going to influence, the people that are going to the church.
Yes.
And so on. The same in academia. So he hasn't stopped hanging out with academics. Actually, there's a lot of academics like Juan Ramón Rayo, who is a really known economist from Spain, who's usually like defending him, but he does it in a more technical way. And I believe, I might be wrong, but I believe that he's a professor at a university in Spain. So yeah, you need those people, but you also need, the young people the young guy who's doing a TikTok. You need the journalist who's going to say, hey, Javier Milei is actually doing this, and he's not going to manipulate the information. You need the social activist, even though I kind of hate that term, but the one that is going to go out to talk to people, hey, Javier Milei is doing this for you. Do you agree? Do you want to come and join the movement and whatever? So you need to attack all of the different targets, right? And all of the different sides of the issue, because that is what the left is doing, and they have always been doing that. And they, even though they thought they lost, let's say during the Cold War, they realized that they can in the long term. We can do the same. Even though right now, for example, it looks like a lost cause, the academia, if we stay there, maybe in the long term we're going to be winning again.
Maybe so. Since you're from Venezuela, I'd like to go into detail. Can you tell me a little? Let's go back to the beginning. Venezuela became independent in what,
1811.
Okay, 1811. And for a while, I know there was the Gran Colombia, which was kind of all three countries. And if you look at the flags of Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela, they all have the red, yellow, blue. They're all, you can tell they came from the same origin. Venezuela has the stars, Colombia doesn't, and sometimes it's just a different proportions of how the stripes are.
And also you're missing Panama. Panama was also part
Panama,
of...
yeah.
Yes.
Panama was part of that too, although Panama has a completely different flag, but yes.
Yeah, they do. But there's another historical reason for that. Panama, after the separation of La Gran Colombia, stayed with Colombia. And then the US was like, hey, we need, that, el canal de Panama, because whatever. And they're like, okay, you guys should be independent, for US interests. Always the US doing this type of stuff. But yeah, anyway,
so what happened after, Venezuela becomes independent? Where do we go from there?
It's really complicated. Venezuela has always been a country with a lot of, Latin America in general, to be honest. After we got independence, we've been a country of a lot of dictatorships, right?
Yes.
Where usually the presidents are either overthrown or they die there, right? And then we've had, I don't know how many, how would you call that? Like, it would be like a kind of parliamentary structures, but they were like only transitions. Like if you look at the history of Venezuela, that happens a lot. But I would move to the more modern issue, like starting in 1958, which was like the last dictatorship that we have under Marcos Pérez Jiménez. Marcos Pérez Jiménez was a military member. He was a general. And he was authoritarian in the sense that he didn't allow elections, but he was respectful of private property, stuff like that.
Yes,
a lot of people
like Pinochet.
I would say Pinochet was a little bit better in the sense that Pinochet was more free markets,
Yes, yeah, you can have a free market dictator. They have existed.
Exactly, yeah. Pinochet is a good example. Marcos Pérez Jiménez, not so much. He he did respect private property. He did respect like people who are like investing, but at the same time he was to focus on, okay, we need to have like a strong public policy. And when you talk about the people who lived like during that time, they always tell you, oh, under Marcos Pérez Jiménez we had like the best projects, like he built the best bridges, he built the biggest and best highways. So he wasn't that good, if you ask me. But he wasn't as bad as other people portray him either. Now, after that, democracy started, like in 1958. That was in February 23rd, if I recall, if my history knowledge is not that bad. Of 1958, democracy started. And Venezuela, let's say we were proud of saying that we had the longest lasting democracy in the region. Because from 1958 until 1999, which is when Hugo Chavez got to power, it was all democracy. But we have a duopoly of political parties, just like here in the US. We had Acción Democrática and we had COPEI. Both of these parties were social democrats, okay? In Venezuela, we've never had like a real libertarian or not even like conservative party. All of them were center-left. At least they were democratic in the sense that, you could get rid of them in elections. But they were basically promising, oh, I'm going to give you more stuff than the other party. And the other party would say, oh, no, I'm going to give you more stuff than the other party. During those periods, we had like really high inflation. I'm telling you that inflation could be either 20% or it could be over 100%. It's not that Venezuelan issue started right now. But, there was the oil boom. Venezuela, I don't know if you know, but we have the largest oil reserve of the world.
Yeah, when did they find the oil?
They found the oil, even under Marcos Pérez Jiménez, they were producing a little bit, but with the advance of technology and everything, like we were getting more and more income with that. And the issue is that was used, for these social programs. So yeah, when you have money, you can spend a lot, and people actually feel
Yes.
that they're rich without being actually rich.
That's something that happens, unfortunately, with a lot of these countries. It funds a big welfare state in Saudi Arabia as well.
Exactly. So yeah, the facade that you have is that you're rich, and people are starting. Some people, obviously, because that doesn't always go to all of the sectors of society, but people started feeling that they were rich, and that was the thing. I mean, Venezuela, yeah, Venezuela is the richest country of Latin America, which was partially true, but also partially not true because of what I'm telling you right now. Even though Venezuela was actually one of the freest economies in the region. I mean, with everything bad that I'm telling you, Venezuela was one of the freest economy in the region. Then in 1998, there were presidential elections. Hugo Chavez gets to power. Now, where does this guy come from? In 1992, February 4th, there was this guy from Acción Democrática named Carlos Andrés Pérez, who was the current president at the time, right? Hugo Chavez tried to do a coup d'etat against him. It failed, right? And then he tried one more time, and it also failed. And then he got in prison, right? When he gets freed, because he was the guy that came after Carlos Andrés Pérez, whose name is Rafael Caldera, he gave him a pardon, a presidential pardon. When he gets that pardon, he gets out of prison. All of the media, was ready for him to speak and say whatever. And this guy spoke. And from that speech on, he became this personality. And in 1998, he won the elections. In 1999, he got to power. The first thing that he did was changing the constitution, which was illegal, by the way, because the previous constitution didn't allow a change in the constitution, like through elections. If you wanted to change the constitution, it had to go through Congress. When he did it through an election, through a referendum, and we voted to change the constitution, and the Supreme Court didn't stop him because guess what? He had already infiltrated the Supreme Court. So that's how it started. The first thing that you do is you infiltrate the judiciary system, and then after that, you can just play with the laws. So
Yes.
after a change of constitution, they said, okay, since we have a new constitution, we need to go to another election. So in 2000, we have another election, and Chavez wins again. I mean, just after a year that he won, right? And the presidential period, went from 5 years. That was before, right? 5 years. You were president, and you couldn't get reelected immediately. You needed to wait for another 5 years if you wanted to run again for president. One of the changes that Chavez did was that the presidential term was 6 years, and you could get reelected immediately. So you could be in power for 12 years legally. That's what he did. So, I mean, after that, he started doing everything, like corrupting all of the institutions. And in 2002, we actually got rid of him from power. But then he came back like 2 days later, and he started cleaning, like the military and the police institutions, because there was kind of I don't want to say, you could say that it's a coup d'etat that we did against him. But I mean, when he got back to power, he was like, okay, now I know who's on my side, I know who isn't, and he started getting rid of everybody. And after that, he just came down. He infiltrated the electoral power. He infiltrated the National Assembly, like every single institution that you can think of. He started controlling it. I would say that the most power that he got, where there was actually nothing left to do, I would say it was in 2013 when we had an election. Well, in 2012, but in 2013, he had died already, and then we got another presidential election, and then after that, it was the mess that we have right now.
Yeah. So what happened between 58 and 99?
Well, we had corrupted politicians, people that got hungry, right? With all of the power that they got precisely from oil, they thought that this was going to last forever or whatever. They didn't focus on the real issues, and people felt betrayed by those political parties. They were like, you guys are corrupted. Again, as I told you, there were periods in which inflation was 80%, 100%. So that usually targets the poor the most. and they saw in Chavez like this outsider, again coming from a military dictatorship before that was actually prosperous. They said, okay, maybe what we need is another military dictatorship. What they didn't realize is that ideology actually matters. So if you're going to have a dictatorship, sure, because of whatever reason, at least make sure that they promote free markets and they don't promote other stuff. Hugo Chavez, before the campaign, he met with Fidel Castro in Cuba. So that actually would show you what type of person he was going to be. He promised in that campaign, I'm never going to seize property. I'm never going to go against the media. I'm never going to, go against the businesses. And he did obviously the opposite of that. So
yeah, he did all that stuff. Yeah. So
yes.
And really being buddies with Castro should have been a red flag.
Obviously. But you know what? And this is part of why I'm telling you before that it's important to have academia also covered. In these other governments, even though they were, they were not tyrants, they were center left. And we had a bunch of academics. I think it was over 800, if I recall. I might be wrong, but I think it was over 800 people from academia, people from arts, people from the media, people, from like many areas of Venezuela who were like influential at the time. I believe it was in the 70s or 80s. They signed a letter welcoming Fidel Castro. So even before Chavez, we had already had that chip kind of, put in our head. And they signed this letter welcoming Fidel Castro and basically saying, you are a role model to us and whatever. So Hugo Chavez actually, he just took advantage of the circumstances because that, for you, it's easy to say, yeah, it was a red flag, but people in Venezuela, they kind of admire Fidel Castro too. So what can I tell you?
Not much you can tell me. So, yeah. So, and Chavez died suddenly in what, 2013 or?
Yes, 2013. The official date is March the 5th. But everybody's actually speculating that the real date was December 31st of 2012.
Do you think he was? Do you think he might have been assassinated, or can you say that, or maybe there was somebody? Obviously there were people who wanted him dead.
No. But he actually got cancer. He got sick. So there was no need to assassinate him. He had a lot of enemies and everything. But no, and he actually went to Cuba like to treat that cancer because he trusted, Cubans more than even Venezuelans. So yeah, no, he was not assassinated. I can tell you that.
Yeah. So so it's been pretty bad in Venezuela ever since then.
Yes, again, inflation, safety, and everything. But there is an issue that I always like to bring up when I talk about Venezuela, which is that Chavez and Maduro, who's the one that is right now in power, they are responsible for the destruction of the country. But they were not alone. Like the media, for example, they had their part in this destruction. Even businessmen, because there is an issue. At the time, they saw Hugo Chavez as somebody, who was an outsider, who didn't understand politics, and they kind of helped him too. He got funds from somebody, right? The issue with businessmen is that they thought that they were going to be able to control him. They were like, okay, maybe he gets to power. We're going to give him this money. He's going to be loyal to us. We're going to control him, and we're going to protect our businesses from any competition. And no, this guy was like, yeah, I don't like private property at all. I'm going to seize your business. I'm going to go against you. You are the enemy of the people and whatever. So yeah, they thought that. And other politicians also, the ones that were before, if they would have done a good job and if they would have communicated their good job to the people, they would have never elected Hugo Chavez in the first place. So you have a bunch of people who are responsible. The military, obviously, because they're the ones that allow him to hold to power, but also the opposition, who I call the fake opposition, because they already know that there is not going to be an electoral path in order to remove Nicolás Maduro from power, and they, up to this date, they are insisting in that path. So that just shows me that, I mean, there is no real opposition in Venezuela, and there are other things that we could discuss, but there's too many details to just go, in like a few minutes. That would need like a whole show for itself.
Yeah. What's going on with this boundary dispute with Guyana?
Oh, nothing. To be honest, nothing. The regime did an election, I believe it was last year, to ask Venezuelans if we should, get what is ours. And apparently, according to the regime, 10 million people voted. But then after that, nothing happened. So they're trying to, what Maduro's trying to do right now is using the nationalist approach to be more popular among people who might not support him. But no, it hasn't worked. And other than that, other than the fake discussion that they're having right now, they're not doing anything. That dispute is just a media dispute. It's nothing real.
Well, I first remember hearing about that boundaries dispute back in the 1890s. So it sounds like it's never been resolved. And that was when it was.
No, it hasn't. Because look, to be honest, whether you like it or not, you might agree with Guyana or with Venezuela, whatever side you're on, I don't care. The only way that is going to be resolved if it's one country if it's Venezuela invades Guyana, or if they don't, because Guyana doesn't have like a strong military, they have less people than Venezuela, less resources and everything. So for that to happen, it doesn't matter what the international community say, unless Guyana finds like allies that are going to protect them in case of Venezuela doing that. So yeah, that is nothing real, and nothing real is going to come out of it.
Yes, it is. So, who are the heroes in Venezuela?
Who are the heroes in Venezuela?
Yeah, I mean, some people are fighting for freedom in Venezuela. Or maybe they're not. Who are they?
Not the ones that you know, not the ones that you see in TV. Anybody who's talking about using the institutions of Venezuela to try to go against the regime, they're not actually doing that. So somebody who talks to you about elections, or somebody who talks to you about going to the Supreme Court to do whatever, they are fake opposition and control opposition. They're not real. So the real heroes are, I could name Oscar Perez. Oscar Perez a few years ago was...
Oscar Perez?
Oscar Perez, yeah. No, he's already dead. Like, he was killed by the regime. But he understood what needed to be done. And again, he's underground. You have Juan Carlos Caguaripano, who's right now in prison. He also tried to organize, institutional military members, and I mean, he was how would I say that? Like some members of these fake oppositions were the ones that gave Juan Carlos Caguaripano to the regime. Like, they gave him up. So yeah, those are the real heroes. The real heroes are either dead, they're either in prison, or they're maybe out of the country because they're being politically persecuted.
Yes, definitely. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it seems like a lot of Venezuelans have come to America, and it just seems like it's very hard to get anything in there from what I hear.
Yes, I mean, the salary, depending on which rate you use, but the salary monthly is like $6 a month, or maybe $30. That is like the minimum wage, depending on which rate you use. But I mean, other than that, yeah, people are living in misery. I told you, over 90% of the people are considered to be poor in Venezuela, and obviously they are living to other countries. The U.S. is one of them, but the U.S. is not the country that has the most Venezuelans. It's Colombia. Colombia has about 2 million Venezuelans. Then we have countries like Peru, like Ecuador, where you have like about 1 million in each country. Then you have Chile, where they have like over 500,000. In Argentina, it's also like about 500,000. So yeah, you're gonna see them everywhere, even in Spain, even here in the US. But it's because the situation is so bad. Let me just put it in perspective. We have 8 million Venezuelans out of the country. The total population of Venezuela is 30 million. So it's almost a third of the population. Imagine that in the US. A third of the US going to other countries because the situation here is so bad. So yeah, that is a way to put it and to show it.
Yeah, that's so. Do you think Chavez was able to capitalize on using anti-U.S. rhetoric? Did that go very far? Or did that?
No, he used it to organize um, people around him after he got to power. Again, when he was in the first campaign, he didn't sell himself as a Marxist. He didn't sell himself as somebody who was a radical. He even condemned the dictatorship in Cuba. He said, "No, Cuba is under a dictatorship. We are not allies with them." Again, he promised that he was not going to seize property. He promised that he was not going to close down like any media that wasn't with him. He promised to protect the business of the businessmen. So that rhetoric, he didn't use it that much in the first campaign. He used it actually to solidify his base after he won. I would say the main strategy that he used in the first campaign was actually the social class one. There are people who are corrupted, who are getting rich because they are taking advantage of you, and that actually worked.
Yeah. What do you think the prospects for the future are?
I always say, if we keep following this fake opposition and using the same strategies, the democratic strategies to try to get rid of Maduro, then the future is the same. Nothing is going to change. Once the majority of the people in Venezuela understand that, then maybe there's something's going to change. But I don't think that has happened yet. So I would say, Nicolas Maduro is going to stay in power for more years.
Have you been to any of the Guianas?
Have I been to where?
Guyana, Suriname, French Guiana?
No, I've never been to any of those places. No.
Okay. I just wondered how much, how much relations they had. I knew
Venezuela
has more relations.
They don't even speak Spanish. So we don't. Even though we have like borders with them, I don't think I have ever met a Venezuelan who went to those places either.
Well, you want to take some of the land. I know or at least some people want to take some of the land. So.
No.
So I know there's like 7-star flags and 8-star flags of Venezuela, and people prefer the 7 stars.
Yeah. I mean, the ones that oppose, it's like me. The ones that oppose the regime, yeah, we prefer the 7 stars. The ones that are with the regime, they use the 8 stars one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you guys are life in Florida now. So yeah, how easy or hard is it to go back to Venezuela?
Well, it depends on the situation. If you're a political target, it's impossible. In my case, I don't have any plans of going back to Venezuela while the regime is there, right? But even if you're just a regular, citizen, it is kind of complicated. Not only because of the risk that going back to Venezuela posed. There's a lot of corruption. So if they know that you live in another country, they might think that you have money. So even when you get to the airport, they're gonna try already to steal something from you. And I'm talking about people in uniforms and military members. And besides that, getting the Venezuelan passport is not as easy. Not only is the most expensive passport in the world, I think it's over $300 or $400, but also it takes a lot of time for you to get the appointment first, and then it takes a lot of time for you to get the actual passport. And you need it if you are a Venezuelan by birth. You need it because to get out of the country, they're gonna ask you for the Venezuelan passport. They don't accept. Like, let's say that I go to Venezuela and I don't have my current Venezuelan passport. If I wanted to get out of the country, they're not gonna let me because I don't have to get passport. Yes.
Yeah. Did you have any trouble getting into America?
Did I get into America? No.
Some people don't want illegal immigrants to come across, so they go nuts.
Yes, right now, that is a popular thing, but it's because the situation has worsened, and then we have people kind of promoting that as well.
Yeah.
But in my case, I came here in December of 2011. I mean, almost 13 years ago. So the situation was different. I actually came here by plane. So, yeah, way different.
Yes, very different. Yes. Anyway, so and I've also heard that a lot of Venezuelans went down to Argentina and helped Milei out.
Because they know what is in play. I mean, again,
Yes.
going back to the first part of the conversation, when we have people, like Antonella talking about Milei, saying that he's a threat to democracy, it just shows you, to us as Venezuelans, it's kind of ridiculous. So yeah, most of the people, the ones that are citizens, they voted for Javier Milei. Most of them. The ones that are not, that couldn't vote, they helped with the like with the protection of the vote. I have friends in Argentina, and even though they were not able to vote, they decided to volunteer,
Yes.
to help the Javier Milei's campaign, and they went like to the poll places, and they were there, like making sure that all of the votes are being counted. So yeah, Venezuelans, we know that in like from our own experience, that it isn't easy to deal with the left. And let me tell you something: the other government had been in power already for like 16 years. They had this little break with Mauricio Macri, but institutions were already kind of corrupted. So if they would have elected Sergio Massa, I'm pretty sure the situation, like if would have, it always gets harder and harder, like the more time they have in power to get rid of them through elections. So Argentina had that chance, and Venezuelans obviously wanted to be part of that. Yes.
Yes. Well, I think we're getting to a good stopping point. Do you have anything else to say before we go about Venezuela or Milei?
Viva la libertad, carajo. That's all.
Yeah,
Everything that I have to say.
and tell us your own podcast, which is in Spanish.
Yes, it is in Spanish. It's called Contrapoder. You can find us on YouTube.
Contra
And my social
Poderes.
media is like the ones I already read it right there, Esteban DHR.
Yeah, so this has been a great talk. Please buy my novel, Escape from the Village. Please subscribe to the channel, follow the channel, or like the video, and go check out my Substack. And thank you, Esteban. I'm Chris Baker, and we're out.